Hello, my quilting friends. My name is Leah Day, and welcome to episode 126 of the podcast. And today I'm going to be sharing my predictions for the next 10 years. It is 2020, which means that we are in a new decade. And I thought it would be kind of cool to do a podcast where I'm sharing what I think is going to change and what's going to happen in the next 10 years, what we can look forward to by 2030. And I'm going to be sharing this kind of as a retrospect, looking back, because I've been in business since 2009 and I didn't really think about it very much in 2010. But when I actually took the time to stop and think, I was like, well, wow, a lot has changed. And, this, and this has happened. And that's given me a lot of perspective on how things are working right now. So I thought that would be kind of a cool topic for a podcast. And I cannot wait to share with you all of the different ideas and thoughts that I've kind of pulled together for this. I've spent the last few weeks actually thinking about it, kind of thinking through what I think is going to change. And I think it's going to be a pretty cool topic. But real quick, first, a little bit of news about what's going on around the house. I am outside. It is January and it is a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous day. And I just absolutely could not miss it. The sun is shining, is nice and warm. It's about, I'd say it's at least 70 degrees right now. And this is why I love North Carolina. We have really, really weird weather where, yesterday it was just gray and rainy and awful. It was warm, but it was just completely wet and mucky. But then all of a sudden the sun comes out and dries everything up and it's just gorgeous. So yeah, we get days like this. It's awesome. So I'm taking advantage of that. I have set up my chair outside, kind of in my backyard, and I'm going to be stitching together my double wedding ring. I'm still working on my double wedding ring using clothing from my grandmother-in-law and my mother-in-law. So this will be my project for today. And a couple things. We had our first mini block Monday last week and then our second one. So you can learn how to piece a mini churn dash block and a mini pinwheel block. And just in case you're wondering, you can jump ahead in the podcast. There's going to be a timestamp below the video. So if you don't want to do a catch up about the news around the house, just jump ahead to get straight to that portion of the show. So here is our pinwheel block from this week and our churn dash block from the week before. You can learn how to piece these. Go to leahday.com/mini. That's where you'll find all of the videos linked up. So you can see I am getting a little head on my mini blocks and planning out many fun blocks to piece together and fun projects that we can make with them. And that's kind of the fun thing with Mini Block Monday is everything that you need for piecing the block itself is in the video. Just watch the video carefully and you can find all the information, including the cut sizes of the pieces, how they go together, all that good stuff. But if you'd like to make a cute project from your mini blocks, this is a bonus pattern that I offer to our Quilt Friends Club. And super, super thank you to all of our new members. We have gotten so many new members this past week. I'd say more new members than I've had in a year, which is very, very exciting. And because of that, I'm just going to read first names as fast as I can go. Here we go. This special thank you to Catherine, Julie, Karen, Libby, Kathy, all spelled differently, Linda, Jean, Diane, Rhonda, Martha Ann, Annette, Susie, Brenda, Stella, Virginia, Ann, Kathy, Andra, Linan, Cheryl, Wendy, Kathy, Rose, Angela, Janie, and Anna. Thank you guys so much for joining in the fun. You can join in the fun too at quiltfriends.club. And something else that we do for the club is we do a giveaway of a pre-cut pack. Here it is. So this is a pack of Fat Quarters Far, Far Away by Heather Ross. And this is going to go to Mary Sawatska. Congratulations, Mary. Josh will be shipping that out to you this week. So yeah, that is pretty much it for the updates. We have had some new free motion quilting designs, and I've shared my new method of sharing, which is half on my home sewing machine and half on my long arm. So you can learn how to quilt electric pulse, and that's half on the home machine, half on the long arm. I'm really liking these videos. I love designing You know, I just absolutely love making new filler designs, and that's just so much fun. And then the challenge, and honestly, it really makes me see the designs in a different light to put them on the long arm and actually get them in a real quilt. And it's been helping me as a designer start thinking through that and saying, oh, okay, well that's, you know, how is the design going to work in a real quilt application? And I love it. It's just, it's a lot of fun. It's a challenge too. And I'm working on figuring out how to make it, I don't know, prettier. You know, I guess I've been kind of struggling with that a little bit. You know, the average quilt that we're wanting to quilt, it usually is, you know, busy. You know, there's patchwork pieces and stuff and different fabrics and stuff. And so I've been thinking through that because, and now a chicken just started laying. So, okay guys, just a little reminder, I am outside and we do have chickens, and so it's gonna get a little loud sometimes. There might also be wind noise, and for that I apologize, but yeah. Anyway, she's got a big one. Anyway, yeah, I'm thinking about doing some printed fabric panels for my long arming videos. I have a big quilt on my continuum frame right now, which is why I've been focusing on my hoop frame. And I still have QCT I need to put on my hoop frame as well. So it's kind of like I need to take the whole thing apart and put it back together again. It's on my list. That's a very long list. Woo! Another downside of being outside is that the wind is a real thing. Okay, all right. So one other thing. So, yep, I am thinking about, where did I lose my piece? Ah, there we go. All right. The unexpected challenges of filming outside. This has been fun. Okay, so yeah, I'm thinking about doing some printed fabric panels on spoon flower, partly to, you know, just try out different colors and different settings so I can get some different looks on those quilts, and then also just to experiment with different materials. I'd really love to know how minky and how velvet, and I experimented with their organic cotton sateen, and I ended up making some table napkins out of that material, and I absolutely love how they've come out. And what's amazing about them is I've washed them several times. The colors have stayed super, super bright and not even the slightest sign of fading. And they have stayed flatter and less wrinkled than all my other table napkins. So yeah, the organic cotton sateen, a little expensive, but absolutely worth it. Now, I know James is in the yard, but I'm not sure what exactly he's doing. So I'm just hoping that he's behaving himself. We'll see. There's an exotic bald eagle? I don't think so, sweetie, sorry. You hear it? I think it's just a regular hawk. Okay. I'm not hearing anything. I'm not hearing anything. I'm just really not hearing anything. Okay, so one other thing that I wanted to share is I realized, you know, 2020, it's kind of a big date, big year, and it would also be a very convenient year to have a dated test, like experiments, and to be able to know when something is starting, such as like I've been cleaning my house, like, you know, going, oh, now I'll be able to remember I cleaned this last time in 2020, and it'll encourage me to, you know, clean my windows more often and that kind of thing. But I decided, partly because I have received the question that I no longer want to get anymore, and that is it really okay to press your seam allowances open, or will that make your whole quilt fall apart? Basically, I get that question at least once a week because I press on my seam allowances open. I make a point of showing that in my videos, and I try and explain why every time, but you know, I always get that one person that's like, but why? You know, or the but what if? You know, the but what if it all falls apart? What if, you know, when you stitch in the ditch, exactly in the ditch, it breaks your cotton thread, your piecing thread, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I've decided to do a test, and that's what these two blocks are. I had a lot of mini blocks left over from piecing all of our blocks and testing them and stuff. So I pieced together this block, and it's about, I think this came out about 8 inches square, okay? And all of the seams are pressed open and flat. I'll take it off the batting so you can see open and flat. Then I had a lot of pieces left over and I was able to press them closed to one side. And that is this one. It's not as pretty, but you know, it does the job. It'll do the job. So all of those seams are pressed to one side. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna quilt these. I'm gonna stitch these in the ditch, okay? And then I'm gonna bind them and then I'm gonna wash them every week with my laundry, every week for an entire year. And I'm gonna mark the back. I have white backing fabric on it. So I'm gonna mark the back every time I wash one of them. I'm gonna mark it so that by the end of the year, it will be 52 washes. And sorry, I do not wash my quilts that often. I wash my quilts maybe once a year, if that, if it's like, you know, coming out of storage or going back into storage. I might wash a bed quilt, but most of my quilts don't get washed that often. So I feel like this is a solid test to say, yeah, you know, is it okay for seams to be pressed open or pressed to one side? Yeah, I think it absolutely is. And now I'm gonna prove it. Now I'm going to back up my statement with real knowledge and an experiment that's controlled that I can actually prove. No, there is no snow in the yard. You are not allowed to do that. The other unintended side effect of being outside is I did not realize just how much James wanted to be in the video. He usually runs the other way when I turn on a camera, and today he's just like, I want to be in it. It's hilarious. Okay, so yeah, I want this experiment to be able to show it doesn't matter how you press your seams, your quilt's not going to fall apart regardless. It's a-okay. Press it however you want. And I can say, because I probably will continue washing those after 2020, and I can legitimately say, look, I've been washing these squares in my laundry every week since 2020, and it hasn't fallen apart yet. I look forward to that. And the reason why I feel so confident about this is because I've been pressing seams open since 2005 when I started quilting, and it's not been a problem in any of my quilts. And I did the math on that. I was like, wow, you know, I've actually been quilting for 15 years, and that's not, you know, none of this stuff has ever posed an issue at all, like zero. So that's why I realized, you know, it's high time that I really do an experiment, do something that I can really show and have that video footage so then I can refer back to it maybe 2025 or 2030. I can do update videos and that'll be lots of fun. Okay. So that is pretty much it for the updates around the house. I am just feeling amazing. Guys, you have no idea. The sun is like right there. And yes, it's a little blinding, but oh my gosh, I haven't been out in the sun in months, it feels like. So this is just, I've got to stop and bask every once in a while, pull my sunglasses down and just bask in it. I hope the wind is not coming through the bird noises, the chicken noises. I hope that's not too distracting. Okay, so now it is time to start our official podcast topic, and that is future predictions for the next 10 years. And I'm trying to pull back from what I saw change and observe from 2010 to 2020. And it, you know, what's funny about it is days are long, but the years are short. And we can look back and have a lot of perspective, hindsight, you know. We can have a lot of perspective on something that was a dramatic change that didn't feel very dramatic at the time. So the first thing I want to talk about is just how far we've come in 10 years. I mean, it's pretty amazing, and it's a good thing to do this. I think it's a nice gratitude, you know, creating thing, because it really, I think, helps to notice these changes and to acknowledge, wow, you know, we really have it good. We have a number of resources. We have an amazing number of things that we can play with. As I have said in every podcast episode, and will continue to say, we can make anything we can dream of. And our creativity is limitless these days. We are truly living in the luckiest time. You know, we have unfettered access to information, unfettered access to materials and tools and supplies that, you know, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, people would really have killed to have access in that same way. So let's first talk about what things were like in 2010. Well, first thing to remember is that iPads hadn't even been released yet. they were being invented, but iPads weren't released until April 3rd, 2010. So it was that year that iPads really became a thing. And remember, iPads were what really got people, watching videos off their computer, reading blogs off their computer. That was the start of real social media on your phone, So I don't remember really paying any attention to that at the time, but it ended up being a major game changer for me because when I noticed in 2000, I didn't get an iPad until 2012. And the reason was I was just happened to be on my site and looking at how people were observing my videos. And then I saw, oh, wait a minute, wow, 30% of people watching my videos were watching on a mobile device, meaning a phone or a tablet, versus getting on their computer, booting it up, sitting there at their computer and watching on the computer screen. So that was a game changer for me in 2012, and I never had considered getting anything like that. I don't think we had cell phones. I know I didn't have a smartphone until after I had an iPad. I think I didn't get a cell phone until 2013 or 14. So yeah, because my photos were terrible until I did. So, in the last 10 years, we've seen a dramatic change in how we watch and view and absorb content, how we learn, okay? Where it used to be very much like, oh, I've got to go get on the computer for that, which, its own way was a natural limiter of what we would observe and listen to. I mean, how many hours do you want to sit at your computer? How long do you want to, sit there and read or sit at the screen? And then when it went mobile, then it was like, oh, well, then I can sit at my kitchen table where I'm comfortable, have a cup of coffee, and I can be watching video after video, and the whole binge watching thing, like how binge watching is dangerous, became a thing. And it's so silly because what did people always do with television? Binge watch. It's never been just a computer only or a, Netflix only kind of thing. And I'll get more into why these things have been a thing at all. So yeah, to think about that, the idea of being able to watch videos or read or check in on your favorite creators' posts, on Facebook or Instagram or something like that, the idea of doing all of that off your computer is really recent. That's only in the last 10 years. And really only, I would say, greatly ramped up in about the last 5. These days, you now see, social media, it's so important to be on social media. That stuff, it was barely talked about in 2010, right? So I think that's an interesting observation. The rise of learning sites such as Craftsy. I was an early teacher in Craftsy in 2012. Craftsy didn't exist until 2011. It has since been sold. There are a lot of other places like that though now. I think it's Creative Bug and a lot of different like magazine companies have gotten into that and have formed membership sites or places where you can go and you can buy a workshop or a class and watch online. And I think up until this, last decade, the idea of taking a class was always very much, and especially online, it was very much a, when it opens, the class will be shut and then there will be, it will be open for a limited time and then you'll watch the class during that time with everybody else. You have to participate in real time, align, keep up with everybody else, and then the class will no longer be available for however long the instructor wants it to. So that was the old model that I think worked, through the, early, I would say, 2005 to 2010 was the early stages. And then anything earlier than that was the early stages of the internet. In the last 10 years, it's really gone mainstream. Things have really, really started to change. And, and so sites like Craftsy really changed that model. So instead of having to wait for the instructor to make a class available, they made classes available all the time. You could watch whenever you wanted to. And again, that mobile aspect of, being able to watch on your tablet, being able to watch on your phone, being able to learn anywhere where you're no longer strapped to your computer. Okay? So I think that all of that is that's where we were, and that's how much has changed in the last 10 years. And I think it's only going to continue to go that route. It's only going to continue to get more spread out, where you can learn anywhere you want. You can film a video in your backyard in the sunshine. You know, you can do what you want where you want. That's going to become more and more and more common. And then the internet is going to get faster. You know, I know that sometimes I get annoyed. I will sometimes get so frustrated watching a video at my kitchen table because my internet's, you know, speed is slow upstairs, that I'll go downstairs and I'll watch it downstairs instead. Well, in the next 10 years, internet speeds are going to dramatically increase, where it's now, you know, a second long wait is going to seem long. You know, it's just going to be insane. And any amount of waiting for anything is going to go away. That expectation of instant gratification is only going to increase. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, that is completely subjective. You know, I think that already we're seeing the curse of impatience online. You know, as someone that, you know, I observe and read just about every comment that's posted across my platforms, my site, my social media platforms, that kind of thing. And, you know, it's been a dramatic difference from 2009 when I started first sharing videos. And my videos at the beginning were terrible, and they were terrible for years. You know, low quality camera, bad lighting, you know, I was dubbing over, my gloves were filthy. I mean, like little things that I would absolutely never allow in a video. Now, you know, I was doing it in every single one. But because there was so little choice and very few people were sharing videos about quilting, especially free motion quilting, which is, you know, very, very niche subject, I never once got a critical comment. I never once, in those first several years, I never once got a critical comment at all. I got only just, oh, thank you so much, you know, gratitude, graciousness. And I contrast that now with, you know, the slightest thing off in my videos these days. I will get kind of instant, I'll hear about it. I'll get instant criticism. It's not a lot of fun. You know, I think there's just that expectation of perfection and just the content to be, how can I say it? Just, it's almost expected for the information to be freely available, to be perfect, and to have absolutely no issues, like a crowing rooster in the background, right? Ultimately, technology-wise, I think all of this is going to continue to ramp up. I think it's going to continue to increase. The speed is going to increase. The competition is going to increase. I don't think any of this is a negative thing. I think it's just a natural thing. And it's kind of like, well, pull on your big girl panties and get on with it, because it's not like you can stand in the road and just declare that you're not going to participate or you're not going to grow and move with the times. And so I choose to be positive about it. I'm looking forward to faster internet connection. I am looking forward to being able to instantly access any information that I want to access even faster than I can right now. I'm looking forward to all of that. And I think a large reason for my positive attitude is that I formed the Friendship Club, and I feel so wonderfully supported by the members. And it's not a big club. I might even cap it. You know, I might not let it get bigger than 2,000 members. I don't know. I think we're right now at 500 and some change, you know, 500 members or so. And I might actually say, let's keep it small for the purpose of keeping it intimate, of keeping it nice, and so members get to know one another and that kind of thing. I don't want a huge sprawling group. You know, I checked out Gretchen Rubin had a similar group, and I checked out hers, and it was hundreds of thousands of members. I don't want that. You know, I think with the expansion of the internet, everything's going to become a lot more niche. We're going to need to look for our tribe. We're going to need to find that group of people that we want to hang out with and be with. And there's going to be less and less need to be the superstar, to be the it girl, you know, the super designer that does it all. I don't think that's something that can be maintained, nor is it something that is in any way sustainable, you know, and that's the thing. I think in the last year, I have really been able to step back and just actually say, God, I just don't want that. You know, I had some stuff come up, you know, as far as traveling and teaching and stuff in 2020. And then, of course, we had several losses on our family last year. And I actually stepped back and said, I'm so thankful I don't have a business like that. I'm so thankful I don't have a life that depends on me traveling around. I built a niche little microcosm that works for us, and I think that's essential. And that's why I have such a positive attitude about this, right? I think that it's very easy to get negative if things aren't working, and especially if things aren't working for you the right way. Okay, so ultimately, when it comes down to it, I believe, and I'm going to say this a couple times today, she with the most skills wins. I think that the next 10 years are going to be proof of that. Whatever skills that you want to learn, build it. Learn it yourself. Do not depend on someone else to publish your book for you. Do not depend on someone else to produce your class for you. Do not depend on someone to quilt your quilt for you. Learn it yourself. And she with the most skills will win. You'll come out ahead every time. And here's the reason why, guys. It is so much cheaper now these days to learn the skill and master it yourself. Equipment is cheap, right? The stuff to do it is cheap. The skill that you build it, once you build it, you've got that. You can do it yourself, and you don't have to depend on that other person who may not do as good a job as you would, right? I learned this with photography. You know, I shot my own photos for my books. And then I learned layout. I can now lay out my books myself. So I can do the whole multi-step process. And you know what? I'm faster. I wouldn't have thought that I would be actually faster at that than a professional designer, but I actually am, because that's all I'm doing. I'm not laying out books for 7 different people. I'm laying out books only for me, right? It's why I built the skill of audiobook narration. I'm now going to narrate my own audiobooks as I write fiction novels. You know, building these skills is not easy, it's hard, but the information is out there, and the information is either cheap or free. So you might as well build the skills yourself rather than depending on a vast array of people that will charge an arm and a leg for their services. So yeah, build the skill. And yes, that's, I guess, a little bit of a message to long arm quilters. And this is going to get into machines a little bit too, and that is, you know, machines are getting cheaper and, you know, easier to come by. And I think that, you know, being able to quilt your own quilts yourself is going to become even easier in the next 10 years. So I think long arm quilters need to think about that and consider that a little bit as far as diversifying, having the ability to do more than just one thing. You know, long arm quilt and also write books. Long arm quilt and also design fabric. Long arm quilt and do both of those things. You know, whatever it is that you need to do, but just keep in mind that what worked in one decade might necessarily not work in the next decade. So let's get into that. Let's get into machines and how I think machines are going to be changing. I want you to keep in mind that in 2010, we didn't have these big honking machines that we have now. The Janome Horizon, which in my opinion was the first real big machine, although more than likely there were the bigger baby locks and that kind of thing at that stage, but that was the one that really caught my attention, and I ended up owning both a Janome Horizon 7700, an 8900, and I still have my Janome Horizon 15000. And these are, I wouldn't even, I mean, I call them a home sewing machine because they have feed dogs, but they are behemoths. I mean, they take up a whole table, right? All by themselves. So, and they have gotten steadily more expensive. So where, when I started quilting in 2005, you know, for me, spending $300 on a sewing machine was just outrageous, you know, and then to turn around and in 2012, I think it was, 2012, I bought my Janome Horizon 7700, and that was a several $1,000 machine. I then upgraded to the 8900 in, I think that was 2013. Again, several $1,000s. And this is the reason why the machine market is changing. Our home sewing machines have gotten steadily bigger and more expensive. The embroidery side of things has ratcheted up the cost, and it just dramatically increased the cost of these machines, dramatically increased the footprint, the size, the expectation as well. And at the same time, long arms have gotten smaller, have gotten lighter in weight, have gotten cheaper. Where, you know, I have the Grace Qnique 15R or 14 plus, and that machine on a Q-Zone hoop frame is less than $6,000, right? So you have to think about, okay, for $6,000, I can get a kind of a mid-range embroidery machine, kind of a big chunky machine, a home machine that's going to do those things, or I can get a long arm on a frame and be able to quilt your quilts yourself. So it's really about priorities these days, guys, and the prices are continuing to come down. Now, I don't want to get political, but I do have to mention that that might change due to tariffs and China and things changing in that realm. But even if that does start to dramatically change the prices of our machines, I think that bringing American manufacture back to America is a good thing long term. I think that giving Americans jobs back is a great thing for our country. I don't think that that could in any way be a deficit or a bad thing. I mean, you know, the NAFTA and the change taking all of our manufacturing jobs out, I mean, that directly impacted my dad, who worked in mills after he dropped out of high school. And, you know, he saw all of the job prospects that he had slowly dwindle and disappear through the 80s and 90s. So, yeah, I think that this is something that, you know, I think it is going to change the market. I'm not sure exactly where that's going to go. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't say one way or the other, but I think we're going to see a continuation of this trend. Home sewing machines are going to continue to get bigger and more expensive, and long arms are going to continue to get slightly smaller and cheaper. And, you know, I think that you just have to kind of go into this knowing and really paying very close attention to what it is you want to do with this craft. Do you want to quilt or do you want to embroider? Those are two very different things, right? And they have two very different costs associated with them. Do you want to embroider shirts? Or do you want to quilt quilts? I have seen, and they're really kind of funny, these frames that you can build around an embroidery machine, and then you still have to hoop your quilt, but it will quilt your quilt like a long arm. And then I look at the price tags of these things, and it's like, well, you could get a long arm for cheaper, and it would be far less bulky, far less hassle. You wouldn't have to hoop it. You know, the way an embroidery machine works in dependence upon the hoop itself, it's very clunky and it's challenging, and you know, it's something that I do want to do more videos on and learn more about it myself. I don't use my embroidery machine nearly as much as I would like, but a large reason why I haven't pushed myself in that angle is because I oftentimes find it very challenging, and I find it so much easier to fall back on the things that I know how to do already. And that's just a natural, I think that's just a natural thing for any creator with a limited amount of time. You know, we go with what is easier and faster, right? So, you know, and the kind of the new side of it that I'm getting into is automation on my long arm, which is basically a computer program on a tablet that is moving the machine. And I find this fascinating. I find it so thrilling to be able to see this. And I really feel like this technology is in its infancy. I think that it's very, very early days, but what it can do is really, really cool. And I think it's only going to go from there. It's only going to grow from there. I think it's only going to get easier and, again, less expensive. So I'm optimistic about all of those things. I think it's really cool. And I absolutely love being a Grace dealer. So if you have any interest in, you know, the more inexpensive long arms, and that's the thing, the price I'm quoting here is Grace long arms. There are definitely other brands out there that are far, far more expensive, that cost absolutely an arm and a leg and more than a brand new car, and make it very hard for someone to get into it as a hobbyist versus as a business owner, right? And I think that we're going to see more and more of that, more and more hobby quilters getting long arms, because at the end of the day, it's going to be cheaper. If you've got 20 quilts to quilt and you want to quilt all of them and maybe quilt a few quilts for your friends too, well, over the cost of all of those quilts being given to a long armer to do, it's going to might come out actually cheaper to do them yourself if provided you have the space for a long arm to set up. And let's see here, what else do I see changing? Well, let's think about how the internet's going to get faster. I've been talking about that a little bit. And then we've already seen these new robots, right? And this is a little futuristic stuff, but it's kind of fun. I have a Adbot, that is a robotic vacuum cleaner that vacuums the office, and it moves on its own around and vacuums up. And it can't sense dirt or anything like that, but it senses the room and it memorizes the pattern. And then this summer I was looking at, kind of an inexpensive lawnmower, and I found that they have built basically kind of the same concept into a lawnmower, where it learns your yard. You lay down some wire to tell it where the edges of the property are, and it learns where everything is, and then it mows your yard for you. Now, I realized upon further research that it really won't mow a yard like mine, which is, full of potholes and lots of sticks and chickens and everything else. So it wasn't going to work and hilly too. And it wouldn't work for our yard. But if you have a flat yard in town, yeah, you've got yourself a little robot that could mow your yard for you. So I see that kind of technology definitely increasing in the next 10 years. I see voice-activated appliances to the point where you might even one day be able to tell your sewing machine, sewing machine, stitch stippling for me. And I don't know, maybe that might be a thing. I do think that there is a limitation with sewing machines, and that is that, they're coming from what a sewing machine is fundamentally, and that might be slightly a limitation on the innovation in that arena. But hey, they're sticking Siri and Alexa in everything these days, so I can't imagine why it wouldn't end up in a sewing machine one day, right? So definitely see that as a possibility. One thing I've been curious about, and I started doing a little bit of research for this podcast, and that is the e-cutters. So Silhouette, Cameo, and Cricut, the Cricut maker. My sister has a Cricut, and I haven't played with it much, and I think I saw at a show a brother scan and cut. So I did research into all of these, looking into them, and Cricut turns out has been around since 2003, which I was shocked to realize it was, quite that old. I mean, it's, very, very mature business now. And here's the interesting thing is both Cricut and Silhouette have created membership fees for like exclusive design packs. So instead of spending, $20 here and $20 here and $20 here on designs, you can now spend one yearly fee and get access to all of the designs in one go. And I thought that was really interesting. If somebody is investing, $300-$400, I think, for these little cutters, and just in case you haven't heard of these before, they're basically they're kind of the size of a home machine printer. And they're about that shape, and yet they cut, they're used to cut like specialty designs. So think of the really intricate, like cutting out a really intricate cupcake, like a lacy doily cupcake, okay? Cutting that out, with a pair of scissors is just almost painful. It's just so time consuming. These e-cutters will cut with a blade above, and they can do it automatically because it's digitized, it's computer programming, very similar to how we digitize embroidery designs, okay? And so then the cutter moves on its own, and all you have to do is just sit there and pick out the little pieces of paper from your cutout doily. And they actually call that weeding. I find that hilarious. They have a little set of weeding tools where you can sit there and pick out all of the little bits of paper that you don't want. So I think that those are going to increase in popularity, and I'm basing that largely off of, I have Hobby Lobby 5 minutes down my road, and I go there regularly and I just check out where they've devoted an entire aisle to a craft. And I have seen that aisle steadily expanding. It's now 2 aisles now of Cricut and Silhouette tools, materials, gear, vinyl, all that kind of good stuff. And I think that that's only going to continue to increase. And it makes me wonder also, because most of this is geared towards, like designing a t-shirt, like the shirt I'm wearing, it says, bring on the sunshine. And it's, I think this was screen printed, but you could do this in vinyl cut with an e-cutter and then press it onto the shirt yourself. And then knowing that that's what people are using it for, to make t-shirts and that kind of thing, to make home deck, to make crafty kind of things, then what if they were able to make one of those things stitch? Makes me wonder. I mean, I really think so, because they can cut vinyl, they can cut and do like the glass etching stuff, and then there's like a little one that can cut stamps, so you can cut rubber and leather and thicker stuff too. So I don't know. I mean, they are ostensibly a cutter, but what if they also got interested in actually making stitches was one of those things. It just makes me think. And because they're coming from a cutting, crafting market, they're not thinking in terms of a sewing machine. And I think there will be more innovation if a company is coming from a different perspective versus if they're really kind of thinking in terms of what we've known. How new innovation happens is somebody comes up with a totally pie in the sky kind of idea, and they just try it, and they don't worry about whether it's ever been done before or whether they think it will work or not, right? So I think that's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I'm honestly curious to get one of these and play with it now, mostly just to see where the technology is and how it works, and largely just it's creative, it's quick, it's fun, and it also I like the idea behind it, because to be able to get like all the designs for one subscription fee is honestly more economical. I have the AccuQuilt Go, and I've spent $30-$40 per die for my AccuQuilt Go, and it takes up a lot of space. If I was to shrink all of that down to one e-cutter that could then be digitized and I could cut out anything I could think of, that makes a lot more sense to me, right? So I don't know. I think that definitely deserves a lot more experimentation and a lot more research, but that might be something in the next 10 years. I could say I definitely could see myself getting one of those and playing around with it. I have had a lot of fun with my AccuQuilt Go, but at the same time, it does feel now limited versus back in 2010. That was super cool, brand new, had no competition hardly. Now that feels a little almost antiquated because it's got such a limited scope. I can only cut out what they have made dies for, and they are fairly expensive. So yeah, just my opinion, but it's something to observe. Okay, now the big one, fabric. Fabric, I think, is going to get a major shakeup in the next 10 years, partly for the trade stuff with China, and partly because the technology is there now for digital printing to be much more common, if not cheaper, a cheaper way of printing fabric, and cheaper not just on the monetary side of it, but also on the ecological side of it. And I think a lot of quilters, I've even started getting emails from quilters with concerns about what our quilting cottons are costing the world. And then, of course, the dyes that are going into the environment, mostly China, Indonesia, Korea, Japan. It's a pollution issue. And the traditional screen printing method uses an enormous amount of dye and an enormous amount of water to wash the excess dyes out. And digital printing doesn't have any of that. It's basically like printing on a printer. It prints out, it's color safe, and I think that, again, the technology is only going to improve. It's only going to get better, and only going to get more vibrant, more color fast, cheaper, and easier to get. And now multiple companies have now started moving to digital printing. Hoffman Fabrics, Michael Miller, These companies are not small in the quilting world, and that's a pretty big deal that they're switching from what they've been using, the traditional screen printing methods, and into digital printing. And I can say, just from a business owner, a quilting business owner side of point of view, I get really tired of buying, a lot. Let's say, I pick a new line of fabric that I want to carry, a new type of fabric, like the gradient batiks that I really like. And then turn around and they are like, I want to buy that and resell it on my site. And then I turn around in 6 months and I can't get it anymore. That's how the market is engineered. That's how the market is designed to work. Like, they come out with the print line, they make a whole bunch of it, like 2,000, 5,000 yards, and then they sell it, and then that's it. And there's no more, none for you, right? I don't like that model, because when I produce something and put it online, that is there permanently forever. You can find that video 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line. I'm never going to take it down, right? So at any given time, there's someone that's going, hey, Leah, where do I get this such and such fabric that you used in 2013? And unfortunately, I have to say, I have no idea, unless it's something that I have had printed myself on Spoonflower. The designs that I've uploaded to Spoonflower are all still there. They're still available. They're still exactly the same as they were before. So from a designer point of view, I much prefer to go with something I can control, where I can absolutely say, oh yeah, you can still get that fabric 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line. And I get really sick of having to constantly, fiddle with that, stuff and figure that out. And I think that that's going to change. Also, the demographic of quilters is changing. My mother-in-law was a baby boomer, and she's just recently passed away. She was 71. In 10 years, baby boomers are going to be in their 80s. I don't mean to be insulting or anything. I'm just trying to be, statistical. Just that's what it is. That's what's going to happen. And I think a lot of people are already noticing that they have gigantic stashes, fabric exceeding life expectancy, and I think realizing that that can be a burden on their family, and so doing something about that. And I think that the cost of having these massive fabric stashes, it's exactly like the cost of printing fabric can be more expensive than you think. The dust in our homes can really affect your life, your health. And if the fabric is, being allowed to get really, really dusty and musty, that is not good. I mean, mold, it can grow mold, right? So yeah, I have a concern about that. I do think that there's going to be, a lot of quilters looking to de-stash and to slice up their stash and use it up. It's why I've moved from, in the last couple of years, moved away from kitting and doing, projects like that, and instead focused on projects that are emphasizing cutting up your stash and using those fabrics that you already have. I just think that that's a smart move in general, and then it's also a lot less cost because you're using what you've got. You bought that fabric, you might as well use it, right? Of course, this is going to shake things up for quilt shops that are dependent upon constant fabric sales, and it's also going to shake up Quilt Market, which is also, the market is designed to be the fabric selling marketplace. It's for industry professionals, and it's where fabric is debuted. Although that has been changing a lot in recent years. Most of that, a new line comes out, it comes out online instead of really waiting until market to showcase. So things are going to shake up. Again, not necessarily a bad thing. It pays to be savvy. It pays to have your eye on what's going on. Just recently, Mary Jo's Cloth Store, which is one of the biggest fabric retailers on the East Coast, very, very well known. I mean, people, very, very far away would write to me and be like, you live close to Mary Jo's. I'd say, yes, dangerously close. I live 30 minutes from Mary Jo's, and it made a dramatic difference on my stash. Absolutely. My stash blew up when we moved here because of my proximity of being able to go to one of the largest fabric stores on the East Coast. And they've just closed. And it was a slow and steady decline where, it was very obvious that he wasn't rebuying. Something would sell, a bolt would sell out, and he wasn't, they weren't buying it back and keeping the store up. And, and it's very sad to see that happen, but I think that fabric can be risky. It's one of the reasons why I'm very careful about it on my site. I focus more on tools and supplies than fabric. I always have, because it's tricky. You know, I really think that it's a tricky thing to deal with. I think Quilt Market will need to change as far as, you know, just how, you know, right now we have 2 markets. We have one in the spring, one in the fall. That I have felt like that has been way too much for a very long time. It's also, you know, like the one in fall is at, you know, over Halloween, and I wasn't willing ever to miss Halloween with my family to go to market. So that was always a limitation there. And then with the fabric market changing and going to printing digital, that will change, you know, how things come out and when things come out, and it will also change that things will no longer, hopefully, be going out of stock forever. You know, if something is popular and you want more of it, you should be able to get it and get it faster. And hopefully, again, this will also bring back manufacturing to the United States. I know I have been looking around for some American-made cotton fabric brands, and I found one. American-made brand is going to be my new solids that I depend on, and I really like the quality. I really like the look and feel of these cottons, and they are, I think the cotton is grown in North Carolina and spun in South Carolina, which is, you know, it's my neck of the woods, so I love that that's creating jobs here. And then it's dyed and packaged up in Oregon or Washington. So that's American-made brand, and I really feel good about choosing that. Again, it's not a political choice. It's a choice to make sure that we keep our fabric manufacturers alive. We talk a lot about buying locally and supporting our local quilt shops, but we've also got to support our local manufacturers, meaning our United States-based manufacturers as well. So something to think about too. And you know, as far as shops and stuff, I would really love in the next 10 years, I would really love to see a national quilt shop chain come alive. And I know that might sound bad. I mean, chains, you know, kind of like, ew, you know, why would you want a chain to happen? But I've had this idea for a really long time, and you know what, I'm gonna put it out there and somebody else can run with it, and somebody else can make $1 million off of it, and that'd be great, because I don't wanna do it, but I have the idea. And here it is. You know, in every Walmart parking lot, you've got usually a strip mall next to it. Almost every single Walmart parking lot in America has like a little strip mall close by. And in that strip mall, there will be a Sally's Beauty Supply. Always, almost inevitably. There's a Walmart, there's a Sally's. There's a Walmart, there's a Sally's, everywhere. And I started thinking about that a couple years ago, and like, you know, that's a really successful business model, obviously. Sally's knows, and Sally's, just in case you're not in the United States, Sally's is a specialty hair care product store where you can get, you know, brushes and hair care products and, you know, flat irons and all that kind of stuff, specialty shampoos, waxing, all that kind of good stuff. So it's like, you know, Walmart's not going to carry all the specialty stuff. You know, if you have special hair care needs or you have a specific product that you want, you're going to go to Sally's, right? So I started thinking about it. It's like, well, in order to support that footprint of a Sally's shop, and they're all the same size and they all have the exact same layout, right? You know, they've got to carry products that run, you know, anywhere from like the $10 to $30 market, right? I started thinking about it. I wonder if a quilt shop could fit that footprint and could fulfill that same need, where it goes into that tiny, you know, that tiny narrow size building of a Sally's. And I think the focus would be pre-cuts and kits and panels. You know, that would be the emphasis and focus. And then machines would be kind of, they'd be there, you know, and that might be something, you know, to have where you could go and you could demo and you could try out, you know, the more inexpensive brands of sewing machines. But it wouldn't have space for teaching. It wouldn't have space for cutting. It would not be fabric on a bolt. It would be pre-cut specific. And I think that that would be successful. Now, I think that this could work kind of like Tandy Leather, and I'd love to see this, where with Tandy Leather, if you place an order online on tandyleather.com, it's not going to be some big warehouse that ships out your order. It's going to ship from your local, the closest Tandy Leather store to you. So mine is Charlotte. So that order comes from Charlotte. So it ships and arrives in like a day, right? And I think that that could really work well with, you know, this idea of a small, tidy quilt shop where it fits a small footprint, and then if you ordered something from it, it would ship from that quilt shop to your home in a day. It would be the closest store to your home would be the one shipping. Rather than have a big giant warehouse doing all the shipping nationally, you would have each location have the ability to ship. So that's just an idea. And then I started thinking about, you know, the whole digital printing thing. And I shared this idea a couple years ago, but I'll share it again just in case someone is watching and suddenly decides that this is a marvelous idea and they want to run with it. And that is, instead of having, you know, you walk into a fabric store and there's bolts and bolts and bolts on the wall of printed fabric, and it's like, well, you didn't have my right color of green. I'm not going to buy anything because I wanted green, you know. Instead of that, all of the fabric on the wall is gray goods. It's all white or beige. It's not colored. And what do you have in the middle of the store is a giant printer. And so you walk in and you browse a huge collection of fabric designs, thousands and thousands of fabric designs. You find the perfect green with clover leaves on it and polka dots, whatever it is that you want. You print it and you get exactly the amount you want printed right there in the store off of the material that you're wanting to work with. So if you want to print 5 yards of cotton sateen, or you want to print 5 yards of canvas, or you want to print 2 yards of quilting cotton, or you just want to print some little fat quarters, you can print anything that you want, the amount that you want, you get it printed right there. And this could also work online too, where you order your fabric and then go and pick it up from the store and have it all printed and ready for you, or you order your fabric and it ships to you from that store. So I think that's a possibility. It's not that I have seen anything like it yet, right? I haven't seen anything like it yet, but I think it's a possibility because the technology is there. The technology exists. What now needs to happen is the business owner with the drive, the dream, the ambition, and the savvy in order to put it together, right? And that's not going to be me. That's why I'm putting it out there, because I would love to shop at both stores. I would love to go to both stores. I would love to participate in both stores, but I don't want to own that idea, you know? So I'm putting it out there. In 10 years, I want that to be a reality. I want someone else to have invented that. I want to be able to shop at America's Quilt Shop chain, where, you know, in every Walmart parking lot next to the Sally's, there is an American Quilt Shop, and you can go and you can get started quilting, you know, and everything in the store is pre-cut or panels, and, you know, cheaper machines. Yes, the reason why I think that this would be a good thing, the reason why I think that that would just be awesome, is because that would bring in so many new quilters. This is the thing, guys. In 10 years, you know, things continue to change. And the thing that I see and worry about the most from my son is the lack of motor skills. It's the lack of doing real stuff, the lack of setting and stitching. I mean, of course, he's a boy, but the lack of ability with his generation. And, you know, it's not across the board, you know, but I think that his generation has spent far more time playing video games and touching an iPad screen than they ever have actually being outside and building a fort and playing with chickens. I mean, you know, I realized the other day I was at Hart Square for a Christmas event, and I came into a cabin, and there was a guy, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, thank God you came in here. I thought I was locked inside." And I turned around and I looked at the door and I realized why he thought that. It was a traditional blacksmith door. It was a latch door. And to someone who's never seen one before, it looks weird. And you might not even know how to open it. You know, it looks so strange. And then too, because they're log cabins, the doors swell. So you have to kick them and know how to operate the latch in order to open the door. And in that moment, as I was standing there looking at that door and that latch, I just reflected on how weird of a childhood I had. My dad was a blacksmith. I grew up hanging out with him in a blacksmith shop. I grew up with those style of latches on all of our doors at home. So it was no big deal to just turn around and show him how it worked, because that was the reality that I grew up in. And James, of course, has grown up being outside and hanging out with chickens and helping me raise bunnies and all that kind of good stuff. But even with that, I still feel like, you know, the skill is not there for these kids the way it is for my generation. And it does worry me. And so I think that having an American quilt shop chain, even if all it carries is pre-cuts and cheaper machines, be a good thing to make sure that people are continuing to be exposed to traditional quilts, and even in pre-cuts and fabric and that style of thing. That's a good thing. You know, I think there's a tendency to get negative when something's successful, or negative when something's, you know, mainstream, or, you know, like a chain. You know, of all the videos that I shared in the last couple of years, I got the most negativity on the one for Joanne Fabrics, because people were like, oh, you should have criticized the fabric. I was like, I'm not going to criticize the fabric. The fabric is actually really good. I thought it was great, actually. And, you know, so, I mean, there's this kind of negativity against chains. You know what chains do? Chains connect kids to the hobby. Chains connect people without the tons and tons of cash to the hobby. I grew up buying fabric from Walmart. I grew up buying beads from American Crafts. It was a great big box store back in the 90s. If I didn't have those chains, I would not have had access to craft at all. I would not have had access to any materials at all. So it's easy to get negative about those things, but consider that not all towns have a specialty quilt shop. Not all towns give kids access even to that quilt shop. I don't want to think about how certain quilt shops would react to a kid walking into the shop. You know, they're just not always all that nice to kids walking in there. So I think all of that would be a really good thing. And I would love to see a fabric store where you could get anything you want printed right there. I think Spoonflower is perfectly positioned to make something like that happen. I would love that, because it would be so awesome to walk in and watch the printer work. It would be so awesome to have the fabric shipped more quickly. It would be so awesome to be able to browse thousands and thousands of designs and, you know, have that printed in the store on whatever you want it printed on. I think that would be just the coolest thing ever. But all of this, you know, it's pie in the sky a little bit. I mean, some of this is predictions based on what I've seen in the last 10 years and my rooster's opinion as well. So overall, as you can see, I am very optimistic about the future. I'm very optimistic about these next 10 years. I'm excited about these next 10 years, although in 10 years, my son will have left home. You know, we'll have an empty nest if we don't have another baby. You know, that's a little bit melancholy, but at the same time, I can look at this and say, well, I'm excited to be writing more books, and I'm excited to be continuing teaching, and I'm excited to be sharing with my Quilt Friends Club, and I'm excited about continuing to teach and do these things and continuing to figure things out. I love that side of it. I love the challenge. Even when I have a bad day, you know, even when things seem tough, when the game now seems no longer fair, that's okay. I truly believe that the best investment I have ever made is in my skills. And as I continue to learn and grow and build new skills, you know, it just, something about that just, I don't worry because of that, because I know that the skills that I have are infinitely applicable to anything. Even if I stopped running my business, I could go and shoot videos for other people. I could do audio for other people. I could edit for other people. I have loads and loads of skills that are absolutely applicable to anybody. And because of that, I don't worry. You know, even how much things have changed in just the last 3 or 4 years doesn't worry me at all. And I think the best possible attitude to have is one of gratitude for all of the amazing things that we have to play with. I mean, just think about cork fabric. I mean, cork fabric didn't exist 10 years ago, and now it's in practically every quilt shop, and glitter fabric and vinyl and all of these fun things that are coming into vogue because of the e-cutters, and this is the cool thing is like, new technology in one craft is going to breed new technology in other crafts. We only have ruler quilting because that became a thing for long arms, and then it became a thing for home sewing machine quilting too. So yeah, embrace this, embrace all of the many changes that are coming our way, and just remember, she with the most skills will win. I promise you that. I truly believe that that is the most important thing to be focusing on in the next 10 years. So that is it for this podcast. I hope it hasn't been too windy for you guys. I had so much fun. I have literally been sweating. I know that sounds bad, but that feels so good for January, the middle of January. I'm sitting outside and enjoying soaking in the sunshine. This has been awesome. So thank you so much for watching and enjoying my chicken sounds as I have shared my 10-year predictions. And I cannot wait to finish my little blocks and start washing them. I'm going to get that all quilted up in the next day or so and begin washing those so I can definitively say, yes, it is okay to press your seams open or to one side, whatever you want to do. There is absolutely no danger, no risk, no nothing. It's just simply a personal preference as to how you press your seams. And I definitely anticipate being right on that, but I'm not going to say 100% until I actually do it and test it. And then I will definitely follow up with that occasionally and share with you guys what that looks like, what those blocks look like as they have been washed dozens of times. So I hope that you have enjoyed this today with me, guys, soaking in the sunshine, doing lots and lots of piecing. And I'd love to hear your predictions for the next 10 years. What do you think is going to change in quilting in the next 10 years? I definitely don't think people are going to stop quilting because this is an awesome craft. It is an awesome hobby. It is so relaxing. I think a lot of people wait to get into quilting until they retire because it's that one day I'll have time for it. I really hope that people stop waiting for one day because there's so much joy in embracing what you want to do when you want to do it. Learn the skill, build the craft, whatever it is you want to do. And of course, if you want to find more podcast episodes, come and check them all out at leahday.com/podcasts. Until next time, let's go quilt!